Today I'm doing a review of Insurgent by Veronica Roth. This is the second book in the Divergent trilogy, and I already read Divergent and reviewed it on my blog, so I will post a link to that in the description bar if you want to go ahead and check that out. As soon as I finished Divergent, I couldn't wait to read this book. I finally got a copy from the library and read it in just about 3 days, which is a little bit longer than it took me to read Divergent, which I finished in 1 day, but I think that's kind of expected with a second novel, especially the second book in a trilogy, because it took me a little bit longer to get into this book because some of it was just plot that needed to be told and certain things that needed to happen to kind of move the story along so that when we do get to the third book, we can build up to the finale a little bit quicker. So it did take a little bit of time to get into the story and get things going, but once I started reading, I again was just like with Divergent, completely hooked and read it really quickly. Overall, I really enjoyed the reading process and I loved finding out more about the different factions and the world that this book takes place in. It was all really interesting and just made for really enjoyable reading. As far as characters, obviously the main character is Triss, and I do like her, and I was kind of expecting her to be a little bit more critical of herself and maybe a little bit more depressed and things like that because of what happened in the first book, and I won't give any spoilers, but just, she's been through a lot. There was quite a battle. She's had a lot of tragedies and difficulties in her life, and so now she's kind of dealing with the repercussions of all her decisions and everything that she's been through in Insurgent. So there was a little bit more of her kind of, feeling sad or almost like, really depressed and not wanting to go on or things like that, which I don't usually like reading about. And I'm not saying that she should just, get over it and not feel sad or anything, because I think if I had gone through what she'd been through, I definitely would be, kind of in a bad mood and maybe having some negative thoughts. But at the same time, it's a really difficult balance when you're reading a book because you don't want it to be repetitive or want the reader to start feeling down. But, how do you describe that character and kind of show what they're going through? So it's a really thin line, and I didn't want to stop reading or feel fed up with her or anything, but there was a little bit more of that than I usually like to read. But again, this is really nitpicking, and there were a lot of flaws in this book. I overall really enjoyed it. The ending, of course, was great. It's kind of a cliffhanger, and I really thought they weren't going to get to what they did get to in the end. As I was reading, I thought, oh my gosh, how can they end this book and not give me anything more? Because I had a lot of questions after reading Divergent, but I was really satisfied with the ending. I mean, not completely, because there's still a lot of questions, but I'm sure they will be answered in the third book, and I absolutely can't wait to read it and get to the conclusion. A lot of people have been talking about the ending of this book and all the questions because it does take place in Chicago, and we know that, something's going on in the outside world, outside the fence, but we don't really know what. So I'm curious as to what's happening not only in the whole USA, but also the world. What's happening? Why are these factions only in Chicago? Are they only in Chicago? We don't really know. So again, lots of questions, but we have to wait until next year to find out. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book to anyone who just really likes YA or really likes sci-fi, dystopian type books. Even if that's not your usual genre, I think there's a lot in here that you can still relate to. And even though it's kind of an extreme situation, the characters are really human, and I think you will be able to easily find a character that you identify with and really understand kind of what they're going through. But I would say it's a great book for anyone. It's adventure, it has romance, it has all kinds of things, and it's just overall a really great summer read. And the way it's written, it's just such a page turner. It pulls you right in. It's so easy to read. There's not a lot of difficult words or anything like that, so it's just an easy, relaxing, typical summer read. So it's a great book for anyone. And if you're kind of skeptical, which I definitely was, because there's a lot of YA dystopian out there and a lot of it gets hyped, and so I initially didn't want to read this. I thought, it's not going to be that great. It can't be what everybody says it is. But everyone told me, if you're going to read a YA dystopian, read this one. And I'm so glad that I did, because it completely won me over. And I really enjoyed reading it. And so now I'm definitely more open-minded and realize that there are some really good YA books out there, and in the dystopian genre as well, which is kind of getting flooded. So if you're skeptical, just try it out. Try out the first book, obviously, but Yeah, it's a great series, and I really hope if you haven't read it that you do get to. So that's it for now. If you've read the book already, I definitely want to hear what you have to say about it. And if you haven't, then go back and read the first book or read this one and enjoy your reading. And thanks for watching.